The blood moon hung low over the courtyard, turning everything crimson as Ariana pressed her back against the cold stone wall. Her heart hammered so loud she was certain everyone could hear it. Every vampire lord, every servant, every member of the royal guard who now circled the open space where she stood alone. "I saw her!" The voice cut through the murmurs like a blade. Vivienne, the Vampire King's advisor, stepped forward with her hand raised in accusation, her emerald eyes glittering with triumph. 3 nights ago, beneath the Eastern Tower, I watched this servant transform, watched her bones crack and reshape, watched fur sprout from her skin. She is Wolf. The crowd erupted. Gasps and hisses filled the air. Ariana's lungs constricted as hundreds of red eyes turned toward her, glowing with hunger and hatred. Wolves were forbidden in the Vampire Kingdom, had been since the Great War 70 years ago when the Pax betrayed the Vampire Alliance and slaughtered half the royal bloodline. Any wolf found within the gates faced immediate execution. "That's not true," Ariana whispered, but her voice disappeared into the chaos. King Draven rose from his throne at the courtyard's head, and silence fell like a dropped curtain. He was massive, 6.5 feet of lethal grace, with silver hair that caught the moonlight and eyes so dark they looked like polished obsidian. Ariana had served in his castle for 2 years, always keeping her head down, always staying invisible. She'd been so careful. "Approach," he said. Ariana's legs trembled, but she moved forward, each step feeling like walking toward her own grave. The Vampire King watched her with an expression she couldn't read, not anger, not disgust, just intense focus that made her skin prickle. Vivienne glided to his side, her crimson gown flowing like blood. "Your Majesty, I know what I saw. This creature has infiltrated your court. Who knows what intelligence she's gathered for her pack, what plans they're making?" "If what you claim is true, Vivienne, then proof will be simple." Draven descended the stone steps, each footfall echoing. "Wolves cannot hide their nature under duress, cannot control the shift when threatened." He stopped 3 feet from Ariana, towering over her. She could feel the power radiating from him, ancient, overwhelming, the kind of strength that came from centuries of existence. Her wolf stirred inside her, recognizing a predator, wanting to either submit or fight. "Show me your wrist." Ariana's breath caught. Every supernatural creature bore their mark somewhere on their body. Vampires had their clan symbol, wolves their pack crest. She'd hidden hers for 2 years with spelled ink that disguised it as an ordinary tattoo. But if he looked closely, if he touched it... She extended her left wrist, praying the spell held. Draven's fingers closed around her forearm, cool and impossibly strong. The moment his skin met hers, something happened. A jolt of energy shot through her body, so intense she gasped. The Vampire King jerked his hand back, his eyes widening with something that looked like shock. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. Then Vivienne laughed, sharp and cruel. "See? She recoils from your touch like the animal she is." "Silence!" Draven's command cracked through the air. He was staring at his own hand, then at Ariana, then back at his hand. Something had shaken him, something beyond a simple touch. Ariana's wrist burned where he'd gripped it. She looked down and her world tilted. The spelled ink was moving, swirling like smoke, and beneath it her true mark was emerging. The silver crescent moon of the Nightshade Pack, surrounded by ancient runes. But that wasn't what made her knees go weak. Overlaying her pack mark, burning into existence with dark fire, was another symbol. A crown of thorns wrapped around a droplet of blood, the mark of the Vampire King, his claiming mark. "No," she breathed. "That's not possible." The courtyard exploded with noise. Vampires surged forward, shouting, demanding her death. But Draven moved faster than thought itself, positioning his body between Ariana and the crowd. His hand shot out and she saw it, the same mark on his inner wrist that now decorated hers, but in reverse. Her wolf pack symbol burned silver against his pale skin, intertwined with his royal mark like they'd been forged together. "Everyone, back!" The authority in his voice was absolute. The crowd froze. Vivian's face had gone white. "Your Majesty, this is some trick, some wolf magic meant to—" I said, "Back." This time the command held power. Real power. The kind that made every vampire in the courtyard take 3 steps backward, regardless of their will. Ariana felt it wash over her too, but it didn't compel her. Instead, it felt like warm water, like recognition, like coming home after a long journey. Draven turned slowly to face her, and Ariana saw something in his expression she'd never seen before: uncertainty. This ancient creature, who had lived for over 500 years, looked at her like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. "How long have you been in my castle?" 2 years, Your Majesty." 2 years. He lifted his wrist, studying the mark. "And in 2 years, I never touched you." It wasn't a question. Ariana understood what he was saying. If they'd touched before, this bond would have revealed itself. She'd been invisible, just another servant, until tonight. "I kept my distance, Your Majesty, from everyone." "Why are you here? What does your pack want?" The accusation stung, even though she'd expected it. "I have no pack." The words tasted like ash. "They exiled me 3 years ago, called me tainted because my mother was human, said I wasn't pure enough to carry the Nightshade name." Silence fell over the courtyard again, but this time it felt different, heavier. Vivian recovered her composure, her beautiful face twisting with disgust. "A half-breed wolf, and now she's marked you? Your Majesty, she must have used dark magic, some forbidden ritual to force this bond." "Marks cannot be forced, Vivian. You know this." "Then she's deceived you somehow, used her wolf nature to—" "Do you suggest I don't recognize true magic when it manifests?" His voice dropped to a register that made the stones beneath their feet vibrate. "That I cannot feel the difference between deception and destiny." Vivian's mouth snapped shut, but her eyes burned with hatred as she stared at Ariana. Draven stepped closer to Ariana again, and she fought every instinct to retreat. He was studying her face now, really seeing her for perhaps the first time. The bond mark appears only for true mates, once in a millennium, if that. It cannot be faked or fabricated. "I didn't know," Ariana whispered. "I've never heard of a wolf and vampire bonding. I thought it was impossible." "So did I." A voice rang out from the crowd, Lord Caspian, one of the king's generals. "Even if the bond is real, Your Majesty, she is still wolf, still the enemy. The law demands her death." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled vampires. "The law was written by my grandfather after the Great War." Draven's voice carried absolute authority. "I am king. I am the law." "But the bloodline has just been fundamentally altered." He held up his marked wrist. "This bond means she is mine. Mine to protect. Mine to claim. And anyone who touches her answers to me." Ariana's heart was beating so fast she felt dizzy. This couldn't be happening. She'd come to the vampire kingdom to hide, to survive, not to bond with their king, not to stand in a courtyard while hundreds of predators debated her fate. Vivian's voice cut through again, dripping with false sweetness. "Your Majesty is wise, of course, but perhaps the bond should be tested before you make such a permanent claim." She glided forward, her movements liquid and graceful. After all, if she truly is your mate, she should be able to withstand what any vampire queen must endure. What are you proposing? Nothing cruel, simply a demonstration. If her wolf and your vampire nature have truly fused as the marks suggest, then she should be able to tolerate your presence without her beast emerging. Vivian's smile was poisonous. If she shifts, even partially, we'll know the bond is false, a deception. It was a trap. Ariana could see it in the gleam of Vivian's eyes. Wolves shifted under stress, under threat, under the pressure of stronger predators. And Draven wasn't just any predator, he was the apex. The wolf inside Ariana was already clawing at her control, wanting to break free, wanting to fight or flee. But before she could protest, Draven nodded once. Very well. He moved so fast Ariana didn't see it coming. One moment he stood 5 feet away, the next he was directly in front of her, invading every inch of her space. His presence crashed over her like a tidal wave, power, age, death, command. Everything in her screamed to submit or run. The wolf surged upward. She felt her bones begin to shift, her vision starting to change. Panic flooded through her. She was going to transform, going to prove she couldn't control it, going to die. Then Draven's hand cupped her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone, and everything stopped. The wolf inside her didn't retreat or cower. It merged. Like water finding water, like two streams meeting and becoming one river, the panic transformed into something else entirely. Recognition, completion, an inexplicable sense that this was right, that this was always meant to happen. Ariana's eyes widened as she felt her own power shift and change. The wolf that had been separate, that she'd always had to control and contain, was now part of her in a way it had never been before. And woven through it, she felt something new, something that tasted like midnight and blood and ancient stone. Vampire power, flowing through her veins like it belonged there. What? She couldn't finish the sentence. Draven's expression was stunned. Your eyes. What about them? They're both. His thumb traced under her left eye. Wolf gold in one, vampire red in the other. The crowd erupted into chaos. Some vampires shouted in outrage, others in fear. Lord Caspian was demanding exile, demanding execution, demanding something be done about this abomination. But Vivian just stood there, frozen, staring at Ariana with an expression of pure hatred. Draven turned to address the crowd, but he didn't release Ariana. His hand dropped to her shoulder, keeping her close. The bond is real, more than real. It is something that has never existed before, a fusion of bloodlines. It's unnatural, someone shouted. It is evolution. Draven's voice rang with conviction. For 70 years we have been at war with the wolf packs. 70 years of bloodshed and territory disputes and needless death. Perhaps this bond is meant to end that, to bridge what has been broken. You would make a wolf your queen? The question hung in the air. Ariana felt everyone's attention focus on her like the point of a blade. She wasn't royalty, wasn't even pure wolf. She was a half-breed exile who'd spent 2 years scrubbing floors and staying invisible. Draven's hand tightened on her shoulder. I would make my mate my queen, and anyone who objects can face me in single combat to contest my choice. Silence. Total, complete silence. No one would challenge the vampire king. He was too old, too powerful, too skilled in battle. It would be suicide. Vivian broke the quiet, her voice like shattered glass. This is madness. You've been bewitched. ensorcelled by some wolf magic we don't understand. She pointed at Ariana with a shaking finger. She should be tested, proven. If she is to be queen, let her face the blood trials like every vampire queen before her. Gasps rang out. The blood trials were ancient, brutal tests that pushed a candidate to the edge of death. They were designed for pure vampires with centuries of power. Ariana was barely 25, half human, and wolf besides. She would never survive. The blood trials haven't been invoked in 300 years, Vivian. Because no queen's legitimacy has been questioned in 300 years. But the law remains. If she is to rule beside you, to lead our people, she must prove she is worthy. Unless... Vivian smiled coldly. Unless your majesty doubts her ability to pass, doubts the strength of this supposed bond. Ariana felt the trap closing. If Draven refused, it would look like he had no faith in her, or in the bond. The court would never accept her. But if he agreed, she would die. The trials were meant to break even strong vampires. What chance did she have? She stepped forward before she could think better of it. I'll do it. Draven's head whipped toward her. No. If I'm to be your queen, I need to prove myself, not to them. She met his dark eyes. To myself. I've spent my whole life being told I wasn't enough. Not wolf enough, not human enough, not anything enough. If this bond is real, if I truly am meant to stand beside you, then let me prove it. For a long moment, he just stared at her. She could see the conflict in his face, the desire to protect her warring with respect for her choice. Finally, he nodded once. 3 trials. At dawn, 3 days from now. His gaze swept the courtyard. And if she succeeds, this matter is settled. Forever. No more questions, no more challenges. She will be queen, and anyone who speaks against her will answer to me. The crowd dispersed slowly, vampires returning to their chambers or gathering in whispering clusters. Vivienne lingered, her eyes fixed on Ariana with naked malice, before sweeping away in a flutter of crimson silk. When they were alone, or as alone as one could be with guards posted at every entrance, Draven turned to her. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. You know I did. He studied her for a moment, then nodded. Come. We have 3 days to prepare, and there is much you need to understand about what has happened between us. He led her through the castle, up spiraling staircases and down corridors she'd never been permitted to enter. Servants pressed against walls as they passed, staring openly at the half-breed girl walking beside their king. Draven's chambers were at the highest point of the castle, in a tower that overlooked the entire kingdom. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the night sky, stars scattered like diamonds against black velvet. Mate bonds are rare. True bonds, ones marked by magic itself, appear perhaps once every 1,000 years among vampires. He poured 2 glasses of wine from a crystal decanter. I have lived 500 years and never felt even a whisper of one. Until tonight. Ariana accepted the glass but didn't drink. What does it mean, the fusion? I don't know, not entirely. He touched his wrist where her pack symbol still glowed. I can feel your wolf, not as separate from you, but as part of you. And I think, he paused, I think you can feel my vampire nature the same way. She could. Even now she felt it coiling inside her, the enhanced senses, the unnatural stillness, the awareness of every heartbeat in the castle. I can hear everything. That will take some getting used to. Has this ever happened before? In any of the histories? No. Vampires and wolves have always been separate species, enemies more often than not. The idea that we could bond, let alone merge powers. He shook his head. There's no precedent, no guide for what comes next. What if the trials kill me? They won't. I will not allow it. But doubt flickered in his eyes, and they both knew the truth. The trials were designed to be survived only by the strongest vampires. Interfering with them would invalidate her victory, would prove she wasn't strong enough. She would have to face them alone. Over the next 3 days, Draven taught her everything he could. How to draw on vampire speed without losing her wolf instincts. How to use the enhanced senses without being overwhelmed. How to channel the merged power that now flowed through both of them. And each night, Vivian watched from the shadows, her hatred growing like a living thing. Dawn of the 3rd day arrived too quickly. Ariana stood in the arena beneath the castle, a vast circular chamber with walls of silver-veined stone that suppressed magic, ensuring no outside help could reach the challenger. The entire court assembled in the galleries above. Draven sat on his throne, his face a mask of control, but she could feel his tension through the bond, his fear for her. Vivian stood in the center of the arena, wearing ceremonial robes. The blood trials consist of 3 challenges. The first tests strength. The second tests will. The third tests sacrifice. She smiled, sharp and cruel. Many have entered. Few have survived. Are you prepared, Wolf? Ariana straightened her spine. I am. Then let the first trial begin. The floor beneath Ariana's feet suddenly gave way. She plummeted into darkness, hitting water so cold it stopped her breath. The pool was deep, impossibly deep, and something moved in the black water beneath her, something massive. She kicked for the surface, drawing on vampire speed, but hands grabbed her ankles. Skeletal hands with strength like iron, pulling her down. She twisted, seeing faces in the murk, corpses animated by dark magic, dozens of them, all reaching for her. The wolf surged forward and she let it come, not shifting but borrowing its power. Her fingers extended into claws, silver and sharp, and she slashed through the grasping hands. Bone shattered. The corpses released her and she kicked upward, lungs burning. But the surface was blocked. A grate of silver had sealed over the pool opening, trapping her below. Silver, poison to wolves. She couldn't touch it without burning. Panic clawed at her throat. She was going to drown, going to die in this lightless water while Vivian watched and smiled. Then she felt it. Draven's power flowing through the bond. Not his interference, but his gift. The vampire nature that was now part of her didn't need to breathe as often as Wolf did. She could last longer, could think clearly. She dove down instead of up, following the pull of magic to the source. At the bottom of the pool she found it, a crystal pulsing with green light, the thing controlling the corpses. She grasped it with both hands. Power surged through her, trying to take control of her mind, to turn her into another puppet. But the wolf inside her was too strong, too wild to be tamed by simple necromancy. And the vampire power gave her the cold clarity to resist. She crushed the crystal with enhanced strength. The corpses fell like dropped stones. The silver grate above cracked and fell away. Ariana shot to the surface, gasping, and pulled herself out of the pool. The arena floor had reformed. She stood, dripping and shaking, but alive. Vivian's smile had slipped. The second trial awaits. The walls around Ariana came alive with fire. Not ordinary flames. These were silver white, burning with magic that made her skin prickle. The fire began to close in, shrinking the safe space inch by inch. "You must walk through," Vivian called. "The fire tests your will, your ability to endure pain. Most candidates choose one path and commit. But there is no safe path, Wolf. The fire will burn you regardless." Ariana felt heat radiating from the flames, saw how they hungered. This wasn't a test she could fight or think her way through. This was pure endurance. She closed her eyes and reached for the bond, not for Draven's help, but for the connection itself. The mark on her wrist burned hot. Her pack symbol and his vampire crown fused together. When she opened her eyes, she understood. She didn't have to walk through the fire. She had to walk with it. Ariana stepped forward, not fighting the flames, but accepting them, letting them recognize her as both wolf and vampire, as something new. The fire wrapped around her, burning, searing, testing every ounce of her resolve. She screamed but didn't stop, kept walking, kept moving forward. Because she'd been burned before, by her pack's rejection, by exile, by years of being told she wasn't enough. This fire was nothing compared to that. When she emerged on the other side, her clothes were singed and her skin was red, but she was whole, already healing with vampire speed. The crowd in the galleries above murmured with reluctant respect. Vivian's face had gone pale with fury. The final trial. The floor opened again, but this time, Ariana was ready. She dropped into a new chamber, smaller than the pool, with stone walls and a single door at the far end. Draven stood in front of the door. Ariana's heart stopped. "No, I'm sorry." His voice was his own, but his eyes were glazed, controlled by the trial magic. "The third trial tests sacrifice. What you're willing to give up to claim your throne." "This isn't real. It's an illusion." "It's real enough." He drew a sword from his side, the blade glinting in the dim light. "To pass this door, you must go through me. Must strike me down. Must prove you want the crown more than you want your mate." "I won't." "You must. It's the only way to pass, the only way to survive." Tears burned in Ariana's eyes. She understood now. This was what Vivian had planned all along. Not to kill Ariana with monsters or fire, but to break her by forcing her to hurt the one person who had seen her as worthy, to destroy the bond itself. "There has to be another way." "There isn't. Strike me down or forfeit your life. Those are your choices." She could feel him fighting the compulsion, struggling against the magic that controlled his body. But it was too strong, woven into the very foundation of the trials. Ariana closed her eyes and reached through the bond with everything she had. Not to ask for help, but to show him what she'd learned. The fusion of their powers wasn't about one dominating the other. It was about balance, about two forces finding harmony. She opened her eyes and they were both gold and red, wolf and vampire, perfectly merged. "I choose neither." She slammed her hand against the stone floor and poured every ounce of combined power into the ground beneath them. The trial chamber shook, cracks spiderwebbed across the walls. The magic that bound the test itself, that forced this impossible choice, began to fracture. The trials were designed for pure vampires, for a single bloodline. But I'm not pure anything. I'm both. And that means your old rules don't bind me. The magic shattered like glass. Draven gasped, awareness flooding back into his eyes. The compulsion released him and he stumbled, catching himself on the wall. "You broke it. The trial itself." The door at the chamber's end swung open without them touching it. revealing stairs leading up. Vivian was waiting when they emerged into the arena. Her beautiful face was twisted with rage. "She cheated! She broke the sacred trial!" Draven strode forward, power radiating from him in waves. "She did what no vampire in 300 years has managed. She adapted. She survived not by following the old rules, but by creating new ones." He turned to address the assembled court. "This is what our union means. Not weakness, not betrayal, but evolution. My mate has proven she is stronger than any pure vampire because she draws on 2 bloodlines instead of 1. But the law, I am the law." His voice echoed through the chamber. "And I say the trials have been passed. She has proven herself in strength, in will, and in wisdom. She will be my queen." Vivian let out a sound that was half shriek, half sob. "You're destroying everything! Our pure bloodline, our legacy, our legacy was built on war and isolation. Perhaps it's time for something new." "She's not one of us. She never will be." Something in Ariana finally broke. Not from fear or doubt, but from fury. She'd spent her entire life being told she didn't belong. Not wolf enough for her pack, not human enough for her mother's people, and now not vampire enough for this court. She stepped forward, her voice ringing clear. "You're right. I'm not one of you. I'm something you've never seen before." She held up her wrist, showing the fused mark. "I am wolf and vampire. I am the bridge between 2 peoples who have been killing each other for generations. And I am done apologizing for existing." The mark on her wrist flared with light, silver and crimson intertwined. The same light blazed from Draven's mark. The bond between them pulsed with visible power, and Ariana felt something shift in the very foundation of the castle. In the galleries above, wolves began to appear. Members of various packs who had been living in secret among the vampire territories, hiding their nature, terrified of discovery. The bond's power called to them, showing them it was possible to exist openly, to be seen. And below, vampires who had lost mates to the war, who had grown tired of the bloodshed, stepped forward in support. Vivian looked around at the changing tide, and something in her snapped. She lunged at Ariana with a dagger drawn from her robes, moving with vampire speed, aiming for Ariana's heart. But Ariana was faster now. Wolf reflexes and vampire speed combined, she caught Vivian's wrist and squeezed. The dagger clattered to the ground. You can't kill what you don't understand. Draven was there in an instant, his hand closing around Vivian's throat. You attacked my mate, my queen, in my court. What do you have to say? Vivian's eyes were wild, desperate. I was trying to save us. Save our people from contamination, from change, from growth, from peace. He released her and she collapsed to the floor. You are hereby exiled from the vampire kingdom. If you return, you will be executed. Guards. 2 members of the royal guard stepped forward and hauled Vivian to her feet. She struggled, screaming curses and threats, but they dragged her from the arena. When the echoes of her voice finally faded, Draven turned to the assembled court. Tomorrow night, we will hold the bonding ceremony. Ariana will officially become my queen and consort. And 3 days after that, I am calling a summit. Every wolf pack within 500 miles will be invited to attend. It's time to end the war. Murmurs rose from the crowd, some excited, some fearful, but none openly hostile. The demonstration of power had made believers of most, and the rest were too smart to speak their opposition aloud. That night, alone in the tower chambers, Ariana finally let herself shake. The adrenaline that had kept her moving through the trials drained away, leaving her hollow and exhausted. Draven wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and pulled her close. "You were magnificent." I was terrified. So was I. He pressed his forehead against hers. "When I saw you in that water, trapped beneath the silver, I nearly tore the arena apart to reach you." "Why didn't you?" "Because you asked me to let you prove yourself, and I trust you." He pulled back to meet her eyes. "But understand this. I will never let you face something like that alone again. From now on, we face everything together." She felt the bond pulse between them, warm and steady. "Do you think it will work? The peace summit?" "I don't know, but we have to try. This bond exists for a reason. Maybe it's meant to heal what's been broken." "Some of the packs will never accept me. I'm an exile, half-breed. They won't see me as legitimate." "Then they'll learn. You broke the blood trials themselves. You survived what would have killed pure vampires. If that doesn't make you legitimate, nothing will." The bonding ceremony took place beneath the blood moon, in the same courtyard where Ariana had first been accused. But this time, instead of a crowd calling for her death, hundreds of vampires and wolves stood together, watching as Draven placed a crown of silver and rubies on her head. The mark on her wrist blazed with light, and she felt the bond solidify into something eternal, something that would last beyond death itself. "I claim you as my mate, my queen, my equal in all things. Your enemies are my enemies. Your victories are my victories. What was separate is now one." "I claim you as my mate, my king, my partner in all things. Your burden is my burden. Your throne is my throne. What was broken is now healed." When they kissed, the entire courtyard erupted in light, silver and crimson intertwining, spreading outward in waves. The magic of their bond swept through the castle, through the kingdom, marking the beginning of something unprecedented. In the weeks that followed, the Peace Summit brought together wolf packs and vampire covens that had been at war for decades. It wasn't easy. There were fights, near duels, moments when everything nearly collapsed into violence again. But Ariana stood firm, with Draven at her side. She spoke to the wolves in their own language, reminded them of the cost of endless war. She showed the vampires that strength came not from purity of blood, but from the courage to embrace change. Slowly, impossibly, agreements were reached. Territory was divided fairly. Trade routes were established. Bloodshed was forbidden except in cases of genuine defense. And in the center of it all, Ariana and Draven built something new. Not a vampire kingdom or a wolf territory, but a hybrid court where both peoples could exist openly, where half-breeds like her were celebrated instead of shamed. 6 months after the bonding, Ariana stood on the tower balcony overlooking the kingdom and felt the change in her body. The new life growing inside her, a child that would be the first of its kind, true hybrid of vampire and wolf bloodlines merged. Draven joined her, his hand settling over her still flat stomach with reverence. "I can hear the heartbeat. It's strong. We're creating a whole new race." Not creating, revealing. This is what was always possible when hate didn't stand in the way. Below them, the kingdom spread out in all directions. In the streets, vampires and wolves walked side by side. In the markets, they traded goods. In the courts, they resolved disputes with words instead of claws. It wasn't perfect. There were still those like Vivian who would rather see the world burn than change. But they were in the minority now. Most had seen the proof, seen that the bond between Ariana and Draven had made them both stronger, not weaker. I never imagined this. When I was hiding in your castle, scrubbing floors and trying to stay invisible, I never dreamed I could be here. You were always meant to be here. The bond knew, even when we didn't. He turned her to face him. You saved me, Ariana. Saved me from becoming like my grandfather, rigid, unchanging, so focused on preserving the past that I couldn't see the future. I thought you saved me, from execution and exile and all that. We saved each other. That's how this works. The mark on her wrist pulsed with warmth, and she knew he was right. The bond wasn't about one person being stronger or one bloodline dominating the other. It was about balance, about two forces finding harmony in each other. A year later, Ariana held her daughter in her arms, a perfect child with heterochromatic eyes, one gold and one red, who shifted between forms as easily as breathing. The first of a new generation that would grow up never knowing the hatred that had divided their peoples. And in the throne room, with Draven at her side and both vampires and wolves in attendance, Ariana ruled not as a vampire queen or a wolf alpha, but as something new entirely. She was the bridge, the fusion, the proof that sometimes the strongest bonds were formed not between things that were the same, but between things brave enough to be different together. Vivian's name became a cautionary tale told to children, a story about the dangers of clinging to hatred when the world was ready to change. Some said she died in exile. Others claimed she found a pack of extremists who still fought the old war. But it didn't matter. The world had moved on. And in the kingdom that now bore both a crown and a moon on its banners, Ariana stood with her mate and their daughter and looked toward a future neither of them could have imagined alone. A future they had built together, mark by mark, trial by trial, heartbeat by heartbeat. The vampire king had not known she was a wolf, but their marks had fused anyway, joining their powers, their peoples, their destinies into something unprecedented. And together, they ruled both races, not through domination, but through the revolutionary act of believing that different could be stronger, that love could triumph over centuries of hate, that sometimes the most powerful magic was simply the courage to choose each other again and again in a world that said they should be enemies. Ariana had walked through fire, broken ancient trials, and survived accusations that should have killed her. But her greatest victory wasn't any of those things. It was standing beside Draven, their daughter between them, and knowing that she had finally found where she belonged. Not in a pack that rejected her, not in hiding, invisible and afraid, but here, wearing a crown she had earned, leading a kingdom she had helped transform, bonded to a mate who saw her not as too much or too little, but as exactly enough, exactly right, exactly what the world needed, even when it didn't know it was asking. Did you like this story? Do you want a part 2? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Also, big shout out to our viewers from Fort Wayne, Indiana, USA, Canada, Michigan, London, Queensland, Birmingham, UK, Long Island, New York, Albany, Central Florida, California, Missouri. Thank you for being part of my small, humble community. To our growing viewers, comment below which state you're watching from so I can give you a shout out in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe so you can stay updated on our next uploads. Thanks for watching!